Today's clip is from a call a few weeks ago where I discussed the concept that every single business owner actually has three bosses and who they are. Here's the clip.
Interesting. So I'd actually disagree with that. So I understand that there's a common misconception that when you become the owner of a business, or you become the boss of a business, or you have a team under you and you become the boss, that you are kind of at the top. Everyone ultimately reports to you, and now you're the boss. You get to kind of call the shots. In reality, though, I think that's not true. I think that every single business owner actually has three bosses, where when you get to that position of what most people would consider being the boss, you are ultimately responsible for three groups of people, and you report to three groups of people. The first group of people that you report to is your employees. Being at the top doesn't mean that your employees become subordinates. Your employees are responsible for executing your vision, and you're responsible for helping them understand the vision to execute. But ultimately, it's your job as a business owner to ensure your business is successful by making sure your employees have the tools that they need to succeed. So what I mean by that is, when you look at it through the traditional lens of, once you're at the top, you're the boss, you call the shots, you just, yell out commands, and the underlings do what they're supposed to do. That creates a very different culture within the organization than when you look at it and you go, okay, as the boss, your entire job is to eliminate obstacles at a high level from your team so your team can do a better job than they're currently doing. When you look at those types of businesses, those are the businesses that have very positive cultures. Those are the businesses that employees get up and they go, great, I'm super excited to come in and work for it. Whereas with the other situation, you notice those businesses have very high churn rates. Employee morale is really, up and down. The culture is, very different, right? So number one is, as a boss, the first group of people you're responsible to, or the first group of people I'd actually suggest you looking at it as that are your bosses, are your employees. Because without your employees, you don't have a team that can help execute your vision. The second group of bosses that you have are your customers. Now, again, with the traditional model, you think, okay, the customer will come to you, and it's your job to tell the customer what they want and give the customer what they need. And if the customer doesn't know what they want, you have to convince them and educate them on what they actually want, and then give them what they actually want. That creates a very different experience than when you look at it through the lens of, as a boss, you actually have your customers as your boss. Where when a customer comes to you with a problem, you go, I'm really sorry to hear that. Tell me more. Let me understand that. I want to dive deep into this problem. As you dive deep into the problem, you understand and you start to empathize, and you start to go, okay, you know what? If I were in my customer's shoes, how would I feel about this? Would I feel like they're feeling right now? Would I feel like what they're coming to me is reasonable? And then you would make a decision based on that, right? So number two, the second boss you have is actually your customers. The third boss you have are your vendors. Now, every business has some sort of external vendor they need to work with. Some businesses, very small, have one vendor. Other businesses have hundreds and hundreds of vendors. Now, vendors they're not quite employees, but they follow a very similar mechanic to employees, right? So one example is, if you look at it through the lens of, you treat your vendors like you're the boss, where the vendor comes to you and you go, no, I'm the customer, I'm going to tell you how it is, and this is how it is. That's going to create a fundamentally different relationship than on the other side, where when a vendor comes to you with a concern, you go, help me understand. Okay, I understand. I can empathize. I would feel the same way in your situation. And because I would feel the same way in your situation, I'm going to implement a solution or a remedy to the challenge or the objection that you've brought to me, right? That ends up creating a much stronger bond with your vendors. More importantly, though, when you go through very tough economic times, what you'll find is businesses that have very rough relationships with their vendors start leaving very quickly, because businesses stop paying. And that's the only reason that vendor is sticking around. Whereas when you build a strong relationship with your vendor, when you look at your vendor as, okay, you're a partner, you're working with me, you're just like my employees. I need to make sure you have whatever you need to succeed. So I need to make sure our accounting department is paying you on time. I need to also make sure when you come to me with a rate change every year, I consider it and evaluate it and think about how I would feel if I were you and going to a customer that I do a lot of work for, that I do excellent work for, and ask for a rate change, right? So the third boss you have, as being the leader of a company or actually being a business owner, is your vendors. So your employees, then your customers, and then third are your vendors. Now, I know a lot of businesses have investors. Investors are no different than your customers. It just happens that the product that an investor buys is a little bit different than the product that the customer buys. The customer is buying the product that the business produces. The investor is buying a portion of the business as the product, right? So fundamentally, if you look at an investor and a customer the same way, you report to an investor just like you report to a customer. You need to give an investor an update on how the product that they're investing in is performing, just like you need to give a customer an update on how the product they're purchasing, they purchased, is doing, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, that's actually a really good way of putting it. So, on the one hand, you've got a boss who is, everyone reports to me, I call the shots, this is how it is. And then on the other hand, you have a leader. And you're right, a leader is someone that considers all the stakeholders, and their ultimate job is to make sure that all the pieces are moving smoothly so that each person can do or can receive what they're supposed to do or receive at the highest quality or at the highest level of service. Right. So let me know how, over the next few weeks, just kind of keeping that mindset of looking at it through the lens of having 3 different bosses you report to as a business owner changes the way you do business.
I hope you found that clip useful. Let me know in the comments. Have you heard of the 3 bosses before? Do you run a business that has 3 bosses, or are you the boss? Also, if you liked that video, please smash that like button and subscribe. I release new videos like this every Wednesday. If you're a first-time business owner or freelancer that's struggling to get your business to grow, in the description you'll find a link for a complimentary one-on-one session where we'll outline a roadmap to make this year the best year yet.